Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our side series on a technicality. What we're going to be doing today is taking an Evil Knight or Crypt Killer shotgun by Konami and fixing it up to make it run again. I got this thing in broken, so it definitely needs a lot of work. Before we do that though, if you could go down below and hit the like and subscribe button. Every sub helps us out and we appreciate your support because each one of these videos is pretty complex to make, so thanks so much for liking and subbing to us. But what we're looking at right here is that Evil Knight shotgun. This came in, and all the wires on the end are just bare wire. There is no connector, so we're definitely going to have to rectify that with these pins and connector right here. But first, what we're going to need to do is actually figure out what else is wrong. And you will see that this pump has absolutely no spring back action. It just slides back and forth. So what we're going to do is just open up the gun itself and start taking a look inside, because I'm sure there's a lot of other problems in this. Obviously, I've already fixed the gun, but when I was opening it up, I really didn't know what I was going to find. What I popped out right here is the spring for that shotgun pump. So the spring was disconnected, and we're going to be able to reconnect that. We'll show you guys in the next step how that is done. But basically all we need to do is get into the gun itself and take a look at what we're looking at. The shells sometimes are a little bit tight. It's extremely dirty and sticky from years of use. But now that we are in there, we can see all the different internals. And we're going to notice that there is a lot of different hot glue going on. You have the lens, you have the sensor, you have the trigger as well as the trigger switch, shotgun switch, and then the main PCB all the way over to the right. There's been some splices in here, there's a lot of glue. This gun's definitely been worked on multiple times, and whoever worked on it last did a horrible job. All the solder is just a complete mess, and they kind of used hot glue to try to fix it. And one of the leads has broken off from its soldered joint because the solder job was so bad. So just taking a look at this main PCB again. This is where all the inputs and outputs go to the PCB, and there's just so much glue on there. Just don't use hot glue. It's a mess. It's a pain to deal with. I kind of scrape it off here gently with a flathead screwdriver. Isopropyl alcohol will dissolve it a bit, but this was so old and on there so badly that it just took forever to peel off. So, rule of thumb, learn how to solder better and you won't need to use glue. You can see that I'm getting chunks up here. I'm going to do a lot of it off screen. This took over an hour to get all the glue off, so like I said, just avoid glue. And if you have a little Dyson like I do, or a handheld vacuum, it's really easy just to clean up when you're done, because all of a sudden I was just covered by little gluey bits everywhere. So now that we have everything taken apart, I'm just going to check the leads that are there. I will reflow some of the solder joints, but I'm seeing if all these wires are unbroken. I'm just checking the switch for the trigger right now. I see where those leads are supposed to go, and the solder looks good on the back because that looks Konami original. So I will just reflow those joints just to make sure that everything is good. They don't have a lot of solder on the back, but the connection was still there. So as opposed to rerunning the wire completely, I'll just go ahead and reflow each joint to make sure that we have a really good connection so that that trigger switch is going to be activated when the trigger is pulled. And then I'll just come in with the multimeter and make sure I have continuity across both of those points, so I know that that's going to be working once I plug everything in. From there, I just need to remove this entire front assembly. Like I said, there's not much solder on there, so I just heat it up with the gun. If it's not popping off, you can just add a little more solder like I did right here, and you're going to see that it's just going to fall right to the ground when I tug on it. Actually, it fell out without even being pulled. So by adding solder, you could actually make it work a little easier. I just come in with some solder wick and pull up all that solder. Taking a look at the schematic, it's going to show you where all the different wires need to go into that main PCB. So we have a full diagrammed map of what we need to do, and this is going to make working a lot easier. So I did add the wires back in with the solder off screen just because it was really tight. I really couldn't show you on camera, but if you watch any of my other tutorials, you're going to know exactly how to solder those wires because I have done tutorials on that, so check my playlist. But what we really need to do is get the shotgun shell clean, because it was disgusting. It was caked with probably 20 years worth of gunk and grime. And all I do is make sure there's no electronics inside of it. I just come right into my sink, add a little Dawn, and just scrub everything away. These guns, minus the scratches, looked damn near new when I was done. I just put some paper towels down, and then I'll go ahead and cover the gun itself with more paper towels. It takes a few hours to dry because you want to make sure everything is totally dry before you put the electronics back in. But you could throw these in the dishwasher too. I just wash them by hand. It makes it a little easier. What I'm going to do is come in with a little Zeiss lens cleaner. I am a filmmaker, so I have that, but any lens cleaner will do, as well as isopropyl alcohol. I'll just spray that lens, come in with a little microfiber cloth so I'm not scratching anything up, and I'll make sure that that lens is nice and clean, because if that is too dirty, it's going to obstruct the sensor and you're going to have bad calibration problems, or it won't read whatsoever. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that shotgun spring back in. One end goes over this post right here, and then the other end goes over the screw post. So when you screw both halves of the shell together, it's going to be impossible for that spring to dislodge. It's a tight fit, so I just use a little flathead screwdriver and push that in on the post. So now you're going to see when I put that shell above and just pull that shotgun pump back, there's going to be a nice spring action. It's going to return right to where it's supposed to be. So that is fixed. I did have to add more wire onto the end of the harness just because there wasn't enough meat there. I wanted to pull the wire through the metal sheathing, but it just would not move. So what I do is solder everything in. So I've got that little splice there, and I'm able to come in with some heat shrink tube and cover everything up so we won't ground any of those wires out to where they're not supposed to go. And that's going to basically give us a little bit more wiring to work with. And then from there, I'm going to come in from that board and check continuity to each lead. So before I actually crimp pins or do anything else like that, I know my signal is going exactly where I need it to be. It's easier just to check your work at each stage versus hoping you did everything right and then assembling everything, testing it, and finding out it didn't work. So I definitely recommend just checking your continuities. From there, I just need to put pins on each end of the wire, so I'll just put the pin in here. I'm going to come in with a little pair of pliers. It's kind of hard to see, sorry my hand's in the way, and I just crimp that first little housing to make sure that it stays tight. I crimped the pin here. I accidentally did it off screen, but I do have a pin crimping tutorial, so here's just a look at what it looks like. You push down, the pin is crimped on the end, and you are good to go. From there, just to cover all my work, I'll go ahead and put this heat shrink tube on, and then I'll hit it with a lighter. It's a little bigger than I needed, but it's the parts that I had. I didn't want to run over to Micro Center just to buy heat shrink tube. So it does insulate everything, and it's not going to move around. So you've got a nice, tight connection from there. After that, all you need to do is put all the different pins into the housing connector. I did that off screen, but I do have another tutorial on how to make a CPS2 kick harness. All you do is push the pin right into the plastic. There's a little tab, and it holds on nicely. But that's about it. Now all we have to do is put all the different PCBs back into the plastic gun housing. I already put the sensor up front. I'll deal with the shotgun switch as well as the trigger and the main PCB, but this is basically just the reassembly process of how you put everything back together. We'll get that trigger right on its hinge point there so it snaps back nicely with the spring included. And then we'll pop the PCB right down as well and get that strain relief metal housing put right back in. But now you'll see that we're in the IO check. I pull the trigger and the test starts. I've got confirmation on the trigger. Right here, I'm going to pull and you see on, off, on, off. The trigger's a little touchy, but I need to work on that a bit, but it does work. And the pump works perfectly fine. Watching Evil Knight shotgun gameplay, you can see that the shotgun functions and we're able to play with that shotgun. So that's about it. Thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and get us a like and sub. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday on the episode on our mainline entry. Bye-bye.